I know y'all can definitely see the grass now. It's probably growing about an inch a day. It's growing in real good, and I can even see it on the camera. So that's what it looks like right now. The grass is definitely coming in. I got a 50% chance of it raining tomorrow, and I got another 50% chance of it raining on Friday. And so the grass is going to be coming in real good. And so today I figured that, well, I guess the big topic for today is I'm going to talk about my perception of money. What does money look like for me? And I feel like, well, okay, before I get started on this topic, I just want to put an emphasis that I am just giving information and that I am not bragging, I'm not boasting, I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm just giving you information, all right? And I've talked about this, but when if we're gonna say things are not fair, oh my God, it's not fair. This guy makes 250 times more money than me. It's not fair. What's not fair? Okay, you're just gonna have to suck it up, Buttercup. I don't know what else to tell you. This took me 15 years. I work 7 days a week. I legitimately live where I work, and I didn't get paid anything until about my 14th year. All right, so you have to consider that as well. All right, so I'll talk about my perception of money. How do I see money? What does money look like for me? And yesterday I was talking about this, but and here's what I mean by I make so much money running cattle that I can effectively buy anything that I want. And I'm also going to talk about the broader idea of the generality of the idea of what made this happen. And so let's say that I record this video, right? I'm sitting out here watching my animals and I record this video, and it takes me 1 hour to make this video. By the time I have finished making this video, I will have generated myself about $1,100. Last night I fell asleep. I slept for about 8 hours. When I fell asleep, by the time I woke up, I had made myself about 10 grand. That's what money looks like for me. Through my various avenues of making money, my income streams, whatever you want to call it. I'm not even going to call it income streams. I've already talked about generating money through equity, right? And if you take a look at and we'll talk about this in terms of a broader idea. I wanted to talk about this in a broader idea. How did I make this happen, right? In terms of a broader idea, what you're looking at, if you take a look across my field, you're going to see that I am surrounded by appreciating assets. That's the big idea. I talk about this all the time. You want assets that you can appreciate knowledgeably. If you have the capacity to appreciate assets knowledgeably, you effectively become a money printing machine. That's the big idea. And think about it this way. Think about it like this. Just think about this, okay? Like, granted, and I talk about this all the time. Granted that I don't act like an idiot. Granted that I don't go and start doing a massive amount of drugs or start drinking or just give up on my business. I effectively make enough money to do anything that I want. And imagine this as I want, if you're watching this, I want you to think about this perspective, because if you are aware that this exists, this perspective exists, it will become a part of your reality. I effectively make so much money that I can do anything that I want, anything. And this is the part that I want to talk about this. I'm not saying I'm a saint. I'm not saying that I'm a saint. I'm not saying that I'm like, oh my God, look at me. I'm not doing that. But at the end of the day, I made millions of dollars and I'm still living in my same trailer. All right. Over about the last 6 months, I just really sat there and thought about what did I want to do? What do I want to do? Where do I see myself going? I sat there and I just really thought about it. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the money that I'm making and I'm just going to grow my business. That's what I've decided that I'm going to do. I didn't go, oh my God, now that I've made the money, it's time to go and buy myself a Corvette. It's time to go and, upgrade my living. And oh my God, now that, I did not do that. And I talk about this in terms of an investment funnel. And I'm not saying that I'm a saint, but at the end of the day, God knows it and I know it too. I did not do that. I actually sat there and I really thought about it. What am I going to do? And I decided that what I was going to do, what I am going to do, is expand my business. I made my peace with God about it, right? At the end of the day, that's what matters, right? I mean, I made, and here's another way, and that's one way to look at it. I generate about $1,100 an hour, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And imagine that you made, and I've already, in terms of reality, like if we actually talk about this in terms of a broader reality, and we actually take a look at the world for what it is, what we're talking about is about maybe somewhere between 1,500 people and somewhere between 1,500 and 15,000 people in the entire country, out of 333.4 million people that is capable of doing something like this. And, and I've always said that, I'm not the only person that can make money like this. Warren Buffett could also make money like this. Warren Buffett could actually probably make money better than this, right? I mean, Warren Buffett probably could. And so, and I've always said that you want to surround yourself with rich people, because other than being born with 100 IQ, the thing that will more than likely push you into being a rich person, granted that you are born with 100 IQ, is surrounding yourself with rich people. Rich people that are just kind of okay, because I've always said that nobody's a good person. Let's not kid ourselves, right? I mean, and this is gonna, and it's like, if you walk around thinking that everybody's a good person, you're either very naive or you're very dumb. All right, everybody is not a good person. Most people, everybody is a sinner in the eyes of God. I talk about this all the time. Nobody is a good person. Don't lie to yourself. All right, I mean, nobody's a good person. I mean, if we're gonna talk about a good person, I mean, are we talking about Jesus? Are we talking about Buddha? I mean, who are we talking about, right? I mean, I don't know, but from what I have seen in I'm not a good person. I make my peace with God about it. I don't sell my soul to the devil on a regular basis, right? I don't, but nobody's a good person. All right, let's just be honest about it. I mean, and it's just more important that you find your peace with God in your daily life and in your moment of life, and that's more important than anything else. And so, me, I'm not saying I'm a saint, and, I'm not saying, oh my God, I'm not here to brag, I'm not here to boast, I'm just here to give you information, and I present my perspective with the idea that, most people, okay, and if I think about it in terms of a number, what we're talking about is about 1,500 to 15,000 people in the entire country that effectively knows how to make money like this. It's a very, very, very few number of people. If you were in a room full of 333.4 million people, do you think you have it in? Do you actually think that you could meet the 1,500 to 15,000 people in that room that actually know how to generate a massive amount of money? You probably will never meet them. You probably will never even see them. You won't even know that it exists. But maybe if I present my perspective, it will become a part of your reality, and then you will develop an understanding of how this happens. And in my perspective, the way that I made such a massive amount of money was, I've already talked about this, I purchased tax-deductible assets that I could knowledgeably appreciate. If you want to take a look at what I'm talking about, take a look at my field. All of my assets are effectively equitable. They're either equitable or they're going, a majority of my assets are going up in value. And if you want to think about like the hay that I planted, think about the hay that I planted. I've already said that, for me to plant hay, and I put a lot of phosphorus and potassium on my field, and it cost me about $1,200 to plant my hay. It cost about $1,100. But realistically, I put a lot of phosphorus and a lot of potassium on my field, and sulfur was, they were having problems with sulfur, obtaining sulfur at the fertilizer co-op. And so I anticipated that I'm going to be putting a urea ammonium sulfate blend on my field. And if I put a urea ammonium sulfate blend on my field, then it's going to be like a 30-00-12 or something like that, or and so if I'm looking to put about 30 pounds of nitrogen per acre on my field, and I'm going to apply the sulfur with that, then what I'm talking about is putting 100 pounds of fertilizer per acre a month or so until I start having a phosphorus or potassium. But I don't anticipate that I'm going to have a phosphorus or potassium deficiency. I put 100 pounds of phosphorus and 100 pounds of potassium on my field, and then I plowed it in. And so, realistically, and it's like, if I'm going to put 100 pounds of urea ammonium sulfate blend on my field, and a tonnage of that stuff costs about $550. I need half a ton to cover 10 acres. That's $275. I was talking about this in terms of the long perspective, in terms of the data that I have collected over the long term. It costs me about $500 a month to grow enough hay to feed about 40 cattle. From about 200 pounds to 800 pounds, it'll cost me about, on the average, about $500 a month. Right, and this is also why I'm going into the backgrounding business. Why am I looking to buy a massive field to grow grass on? Because if I grow my own grass, I can make a massive amount of money. It's effectively like getting feed for free as long as I have decent weather. Right, I've talked about all of these things, my business plan, and and I was I wanted to spend a little bit more time talking about my perspective of money. How do I see money? And maybe if I present my perspective to you, then you will be able to see what it looks like. And when you see what it looks like, it will become a part of your universe. But the reason that I make such a massive amount of money is because I take all of my money and I invest it into tax deductible assets that I can appreciate profitably. That's the long story short. And if you want to take a look at everything that I'm doing, everything that I put money into effectively has given me more of a return than it cost me. And I've talked about this in terms of a broader idea. But me, it's like me, if I stopped running cattle, if I stopped running this business, I would actually hemorrhage money. I would lose a 7-figure amount of money if I stopped running these cattle. All right, that's another way to look at it. And I was talking about this in terms of an expense. This does not cost me anything. It makes me a massive amount of money. All right, and if you want me to put a number to it, the amount of money that I generate on a hourly basis, I generate about $1,100 an hour. So you see me out here right now, I'm watching my cattle. My cattle are eating food. I've taken care of them. I check them to see if they need any medication. Nobody's really having severe diarrhea. They got enough food out here today and everybody looks good. I mean, my animals are obviously visibly fattening up. My hay is growing in, and I'm sitting here taking a look at my farm, just taking a look at how everything's going. And if it takes me 1 hour to do this, I will have made myself $1,100 in the hour. And imagine what and that's what money looks like for me. Okay, I mean, imagine that's legitimately what it looks like. I fell asleep last night and I slept 8 hours. I slept real good and everything, and by the time I had woken up, I had generated myself about $10,000. That's what you're looking at. I mean, if you take a look at what am I doing, where am I going moving forward, what are my plans that I have rolling forward right now, etc., etc. That's what it looks like. I generate about $1,100 an hour. All right, if that's and this is probably the thing that most people are not going to understand. It's like imagine that imagine that you made money 24/7. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's me. All right, I legitimately make money while I'm sleeping. All right, I fall asleep and I wake up, and by the time I've woken up, I've generated myself 10 grand. All right, and the way that I do it is by investing. And I actually wanted to talk about this because I think a lot of people don't understand that. It's like, you could give yourself a raise of about 50 grand net a year and you would not be at risk for practically anything. I talk about this all the time, right? Like if you were actually going to go and you were actually going to follow the steps, and you were actually going to focus and actually make sure that you're paying attention to the details, and you understand that you have to actually do the steps properly, then you're actually only at risk for about $1,000 a month. And for that $1,000 a month, you can effectively give yourself a raise of about 50 grand a year. All right, and I wanted to talk about this because it's like, and I would not suggest trying to become a cattleman. All right, do not become, and I've already talked about this, and I'm not bragging and I'm not boasting, and I'm just saying it for what it is. But most of you, almost everybody, I guarantee it, almost none of you understand that when you're watching me, you may legitimately be watching the most successful cattleman on the entire planet. You probably do not understand that. You have no way to perceive that. You've never even seen anything like this before in your entire life. All right, so you probably have zero comprehension of that detail, and that's a very important detail. All right, I may legitimately be the most successful cattleman farmer on the entire planet. You know, the chances of anybody getting it to this point, even on a broader financial standard, is 0.00001% to 0.00001%. That's the percentage of you making it, even in terms of a broader financial standard. All right, you're not gonna. I mean, if you were gonna make it, I mean, it would be the hardest thing that you had ever done in your entire life. All right, and you don't understand that detail. You probably have never perceived that detail. It's like that's the detail that you overlooked. All right, I may legitimately be the most successful cattle farmer, crop farmer on the entire planet. Right, in terms of running an actual cattle business, like if you put me in the middle of Central Texas anywhere by myself, I could effectively start my own cattle business by myself and generate a massive amount of money. I'm probably one of the only few people, if not the only person on the entire planet that can do this. And I've talked about this, but me, I'm a first generation farmer. I actually taught myself how to farm. I'm not trying to be like, oh my God, whatever, bragging about me. I'm not bragging about me. I am a first generation farmer. I'm just stating a fact. I taught myself how to farm. All right, and making it to this point, it legitimately took me 15 years. All right, and so you're not going to be able to skip the work. I mean, if you legitimately think you're going to skip the work, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, have fun. I mean, go and be poor by yourself. All right, because don't take me with you. No, I'm not going to go with you. If you did the world a favor, I mean, the biggest favor you could do the world is turn yourself around. If you turned yourself around, that would be fantastic. But if you're not going to turn yourself around, then go and die by yourself. All right, because it's not good. I mean, there is no skipping the work. There is no shortcut. There is no throwing a Hail Mary into the middle of nowhere and everything's going to work out in a spectacular fashion. It's not going to happen. And I wanted to talk about this in terms of a broader reality, because it's like I think that the average person, and it's like why and I'm just going to talk about the reality, and I'm going to be as sincere as possible, and I'm just going to give you the information from what I see. A lot of people don't understand, because I've put two and two together, because it's like if the average person knew that they could give themselves a raise for $50,000 a year by risking $1,000, $1,000 a month, they would go and do it, right? And so, I figured the average person has no idea what's going on, and I'm going to talk about the acquisition of assets, acquiring assets. And maybe I'll even give my beliefs on where the market is and where the markets are headed. And so when I talk about assets, I always say you don't want to buy damaged assets. There is no saving an asset, okay? There is no saving an asset. You don't want to buy a damaged asset. And when you're looking for an asset, what you're looking for is something that is equitable, something that is effectively valuable to effectively everybody, right? It has a monetary value associated with it, and that equitable asset is also producing a positive return. And I talk about this most of the time in terms of a business and in terms of land, because effectively me as a farmer, I'm running cattle, and I'm running I'm growing crops, but I'm also investing in real estate, and I'm also running a business. Right, and so and I made a substantial amount of money in my real estate too, just in the amount of equity that I have generated by making monthly payments on my property. I've actually generated myself a substantial amount of money, and I'll actually get into that too, just to give you my numbers. And why do I talk about this? Because it's it's important. And I'm not consulting anybody. I talk about this all the time. I'm not consulting you. I am telling you this is what I did, and it made me a massive amount of money. So, real estate, because to be a farmer, you have to invest in real estate. To be a farmer, you have to know how to run a business, and then you also have to run your cattle and grow your crops, and also not be an idiot, right? And so I'm going to talk about I want to talk about the real estate, because this is effectively something that almost anybody can do. The success rate for becoming a real estate investor is like over 90%. If you actually go through and you actually get yourself a piece of rental property, your chances of being successful are over 90%. From my understanding, that's about what it is. And it's a very good market. It's a very large market. Essentially, the entire, every square inch of every state in the entire country is a piece of real estate, right? I mean, real estate is everything. I mean, it's the entire land surface area of the entire country. So real estate is a massive market. It's a very, very, very massive market. It's not something that you need to, create out of thin air. It's not like some gadget, widget thing that you need to create out of thin air to make money on. Real estate, it already exists. And so if you purchase a piece of real estate, and I've already talked about this, how do you approach a banker? How do you look at a deal? How do you approach a banker about it? I've already talked about all of these things, right? And I guess I'll talk about it right now. And it's like, and it's because at the end of the day, it's like, it's like a lot of people don't understand that it's like you're legitimately at risk for about $1,000 a month, and you can give yourself a raise of about 50 grand a year, and you can do it like this. Let's say you find a piece of real estate, you go and you take a look at it, and you're like, this is a good piece of real estate. It's not damaged. There's nothing really wrong with it. And, it's a good piece of real estate. That's the most important part. It is a good asset. So you take your asset and then you take it to the banker and you show it to the banker, right? And when you show it to the banker, you always say what? Effectively, you always say what? My asset, this asset that I am looking to purchase is already producing a return. It is already producing money. All right, it's not like I'm going to go and throw a Hail Mary into the middle of nowhere. It is already making money. And then you show them your asset and they will take a look at it, and then they will run the numbers for you. Right? I did this at the bank the other day, right? I'm looking to buy this piece of land. Right, I got it under option contract already, and I'm looking to buy this piece of land. How will you finance it for me? Right, we will finance the down payment at 30 years on 9.75% interest, and then we will finance the rest of it on a 20-year term at 6.5. Okay, thank you, banker. Right, I go home, I crunch the numbers, I take a look at the numbers. Okay, so the banker is saying that they want about $2,450 a month. Well, the banker told me, right? I mean, the banker actually told me, they showed me, this is your monthly payment. It's $600 for your down payment. We'll lend you the down payment, but you'll have to pay us $600 a month, and then the rest of it, the $240,000. On a 20-year term at a 6.5% interest is like $1,800 a month. It's like $1,850 a month. And so what we're talking about right now is about $2,500 a month. And I've already said that one of the ways to make money in real estate, and this is a very important part, you really want to be paying attention to this part, is that when you buy a piece of real estate, granted that you do not have an interest-only loan. And I wouldn't, you don't really need an interest-only loan unless you're gonna like take a loan for a massive building, and then it's like your principal payment is sky high, etc., whatever it may be. Most loans, you're probably not going to be getting an interest-only loan. But if you get a loan and let's say your monthly payment is $2,500, this is very important. This made me a lot of money. This is very important. If you pay $2,500 a month to the banker, then you will be effectively getting about half of that back. About $1,000 of it you will be getting as equity in the property. This is very important. All right, you will be getting that money back as equity in the property. You're not getting the money back into your bank account, but it is going into the equity of the property. And when you buy a piece of property, you want it appraised by the banker, right? You want it appraised by somebody who actually knows what they're doing. That's also a very important detail. You want it appraised by a professional. Usually the bankers, if you go and do a deal with the banker, they will send their own appraiser to go and look at your asset. And then they will tell you what your asset is worth. All right, the banker will actually tell you what your asset is worth, and then you know what your asset is worth. All right, and and it's like every time you make a monthly payment on your property, you will actually be storing equity on your property. That will effectively be money that is going back to you. All right, and if you desperately need that money for whatever reason, which is not good, desperately needing money is not a good situation, right? I mean, if I know somebody who desperately needs money, that's very not good. You don't desperately need money, you desperately need God. All right, I mean, you're not having, I've always talked about this, but it's like, the idea of a money problem is that if you actually talk to somebody who knows money, money is always the easy part. Money is not difficult. I mean, money is not difficult. All right, money is not difficult. Money is always the easy part. Almost all the time when somebody's legitimately having a money problem, they're not actually having a money problem. They are having some other major problem, and it is manifesting itself in the money. Money is always the easy part. It is not difficult to make money. All right, this is also something that I put a lot of emphasis on, that it's like if you went from being a poor person to being a broke person, you could go from being a broke person to not being a broke person in 6 months. You could do it. It's not hard. Right? I mean, just go and find yourself an equitable asset that is already making a positive return. Take it to the banker, finance it, and then, congratulations, don't be an idiot. And now you just effectively gave yourself a raise for about 50 grand a year. It's not hard. It is not difficult to make money. It's almost impossible to break out of being poor. And I talk about this in terms of just, a reality, in terms of just stating facts. I'm not looking to kick anybody while they're down. And it's like if we're going to talk about being poor, I mean, we're effectively talking about 99.8% of the entire country, right? Like if I were to have an honest to God conversation with somebody, they're not really going to have anything good to say at all about money, right? I mean, living paycheck to paycheck, $30,000 in credit card debt, something is going horribly wrong. All right, almost everybody. And so, but making money is not difficult. All right, it's very simple. You just find yourself a tax deductible asset. It's equitable. It's making a positive return. You present it to the banker. The banker finances it for you, and then you just don't act like an idiot. You hold on to your asset, and boom, congratulations. Within 3 or 4 years, you've effectively broken out of being broke forever. I mean, but realistically, but I mean, I don't want to, say you're effectively, going to be away from being broke immediately, because if I say that some of y'all might go and just leverage yourself to the eyeballs and then go and actually be an idiot and then lose all your money. But you have to be very you have to think about what you're doing. Think about, come up with a realistic plan. And I wanted to talk about the idea of a realistic plan in terms of real estate right now. Because a large part of my investment portfolio is actually real estate, and I generated myself a large amount of money by purchasing real estate. I actually had about $100,000 in my land that I had put into my land myself, that I completely, and that's money that I can use whenever I need it. And so, and I did that by making a $500 a month extra payment on my principal every month. And for my loan, and to put this in perspective, I got a fixed rate 3.75% rate loan on $250,000 to purchase this piece of land. It was about $240,000 or something like that. I got a loan for about 240 grand, and I pay about $1,250 a month for it. All right, those are my actual numbers. That is legitimately what I pay. And my new piece of property, it's my interest rate is like a triple what it was when I purchased this. It's almost double what it was when I purchased this piece of land. And it's still about $2,400 a month. And so those are my actual numbers. And so, but another thing that I wanted to talk about was I actually found somebody that I'm gonna, I found my accountant. I found an accountant, and the accountant is also, they work in a firm. It's a woman and her husband, and they work in an accountant firm, and they're tax lawyers, and they're also CPAs. And so they're a lawyer, a tax lawyer, and a CPA. and I figured I would give them a shot. And because effectively, and this is something that I figured out, that if you just pay a lawyer accountant, like you find somebody who's a tax lawyer and an accountant, you effectively just give them like $1,000 a month, and they will do all of your bookkeeping for you. And they will actually, and from my I'm actually going to go and have my little meeting with them, and make sure that I get them paid or whatever, and they start doing my bookkeeping. But they're legitimate tax lawyers, and they're also accountants. And you just give them it's like $900 a month. And if you pay them like $900 a month, they will effectively do all of your bookkeeping for you. And I thought about that, and I was like, how wonderful is that? Because how wonderful is it that I could just call my accountant at any time, and they will tell me how much I owe in taxes. I mean, that's incredible, right? And I can also ask them what do I need to buy, how much of what asset do I need to buy to reduce my income tax burdens, what do I need to buy, and they will just flat out tell me anytime that I want to know. And I was like, that's worth $900 a month, right? That's incredible. I mean, I would pay $900 a month for that. And so, I found but they're a tax lawyer, and they're also a CPA, and there's two of them. It's a husband and his wife, and they run a firm together, and they're lawyers, and they're also CPAs. And so, I found my accountant, and I'm going to give them a shot, and I'm going to see if they do good. And if they do good, I'll continue to work with them. And if they don't do good, I'll just go and get myself a different accountant. And so, but that's something that I did, that I was like, this is actually very good, and I'm gonna give this information to y'all, because it made my life so much. It just made my life so much better, right? I can legitimately call somebody and ask them at any point of time, at any time, and just ask them what's going on with my taxes, and they will legitimately just tell me, and I just have to pay them $900 a month. That's it. Right, and it's legitimately, and I was like, oh my God, that's fantastic, and now I can just work on expanding my business, because I got a lot going on. I don't want to be doing my own bookkeeping while I'm going forward. I've always been talking about, I anticipate that I'm going to owe this much, and I don't want to be having to use my brain energy to do that. I would rather just be focused on expanding my business. And so I found somebody that would solve that problem, and it's only going to cost me like $900 a month. And so, but that was something that I did, that I was like, that I'm doing right now. That's like, oh my God, it's just wonderful. And so, getting a CPA, getting an accountant who's also a lawyer, and then, starting a business. I talked about the idea of starting a business, buying a piece of land. If you want to get into real estate, there are various ways to make money in real estate. And what are my personal beliefs on where the real estate market is going to be? My personal belief on where the real estate market is going to be is, well, Donald Trump got elected yesterday, and Donald Trump was known for doing very well with the economy. We might actually be in a situation. Well, but we'll have to see. The real estate market right now is not doing very good. If you're going to go and buy a piece of real estate right now, I would have it professionally appraised. Number one, I would get it appraised. And then I would also ask for a deduction on the listing price. And you might even be able to work in some better terms, right? Like me, I got a 10% reduction on the listing price, and I got myself a 6-month option. And so that was something that I actually did in real life, right? I'm not making this up, right? I actually did this in real life. I got a 10% deduction on the listing price, and I got myself a 6-month option contract on the property. I actually did it, right? And so, I would suggest doing something like that. Reducing the listing price, get it under appraisal, and then anticipate that in the future you will be able to refinance your loan for a lower rate. I would anticipate that interest rates are going to go down. One way or the other, interest rates are going to, and I've talked about this in terms of interest rates, but the idea of the interest rate is that the overall asset market is tied to the 30-year bond, right? Or not tied to the 30-year bond, but the 30-year bond and the overall asset market is effectively on a counterweight, Right, I talk about this all the time. If asset prices go down, then interest rates are going to go down. If asset prices go up, then interest rates are going to go up. Right, the coupon price of the bond, the certificate price of the bond is going to go lower, which will increase the interest rate. It's a counterweight. The certificate value of the 30-year bond is effectively on a counterweight with the entire U.S. economy. The broader asset market, effectively, more or less, it is, right? It's a counterweight. It's made to balance the system. And the bond market is way massively larger than the overall asset market. And so, if the coupon price of the bond is going down, that means the interest rate is going up. And if the interest rate is going up, that means the asset market is going up. The overall economy is inflating. Right? And so I was talking about this one way or the other. I anticipate that interest rates are going to go lower. Right? Either we front run the interest rates lower to stimulate the economy, or asset prices are going to tank and then rates will go lower anyway. Right? I've talked about this in terms of my broader view of the U.S. economy, and I talked about this on the other side. It's like if you get a fixed rate and the economy inflates drastically, if the economy just explodes, there's massive inflation and interest rates skyrocket, then the asset that you are holding onto is also skyrocketing in value. So you're really not at risk for anything. If you really actually put a numerical value for what you're at risk for, to make like $50,000 a year of extra money, it's about $1,000 a month. All right, and you could even and I've talked about different ways that you could generate money via real estate. I mean, if you use like a 2% appreciation a year, if you look at a piece of real estate and you anticipate that it's going to appreciate 2% a year, and if it's a rental property, you can actually cause it to appreciate by raising your rents. Right? If you raise your rents, you're going to cause your real estate to appreciate in value. And if you start yourself a real estate company or real estate business, an LLC, a real estate LLC, and then you just do the whole shebang, the steps for how to start a business. I was talking about how do you start a business. You file an LLC, and then you just take that LLC paperwork to the bank, and they will open a bank account for you for your business. Anytime that you make money on your business, you just put it in that account, and anytime you take money out for your business, anytime you have an expense, you just use that account. And then at the end of the day, you just take all of your paperwork to the CPA, and the CPA will do it all for you. Will do your taxes for you. Right? And in this situation, I'm getting myself a CPA that I can effectively call at any time, and they will just tell me how much I owe on my taxes, or what my taxes look like. And so, in reality, it's like if you risk about $1,000 a month, you can effectively give yourself a raise for about 50 grand a year. Granted that you actually do the steps properly, right? You don't go and buy a damaged asset. You don't go, going off into a mystical, magical journey. You don't go, with your buddy pals on a magical adventure, right? I mean, you fend for yourself. You take a look at your deal. You make sure your deal is adding up and everything is correct, etc., etc. Then you can, and another way to look, and then you can give yourself a raise of about $50,000 a year, and you would only really be at risk for $1,000. I mean, and it's not like, and if your deal is not cash flow positive, then don't take the deal, right? I've already talked about this like 20,000 times. If you have a deal that's not a good deal, then go and buy a different deal. Go and take a look at a different one. Talk to a different banker. I mean, do something. Don't take a bad deal. Right? And so it's like, boom, shebang, there you go. There's your raise. You got $50,000 a year of extra money. No matter what happens to the economy, you're effectively good to go. If interest rates go lower because asset prices go down, you had a 10% deduction on the appraisal price of your price of your home anyway. And, and it's not going lower than, it's not, I wouldn't say that residential real estate, even large residential real estate like apartment complexes, are going to fall by more than 10%. I wouldn't say it's going to be more than 10%. And it's like, it's like if you manage to get yourself a 10% deduction off the appraisal price because interest rates were high, then even if property values tank, by 10%, you're still at net zero. And if property values tank, it's on a counterbalance with the U.S. bond. You're going to be able to refinance your property for a lower rate. And if you refinance your property for a lower rate, it will reduce your monthly payment. And if it reduces your monthly payment, that's another way of saying you just get extra money. All right, and you will also have put equity in your property, etc., etc. You will actually, there will be multiple ways. There are many ways to reduce your monthly payment. And if you know, I really don't want to, well, but there are many ways to, reduce your monthly payment, right? If you got to, if you got your property professionally appraised and then you got a 10% deduction on that appraisal value because interest rates were high, and you were holding on to your property, and rates, whatever, the real estate market fell 10%, you would still be net zero. And if the real estate market legitimately fell 10%, then interest rates would naturally go down, because the overall asset market and the 30-year bond are effectively on a counterweight. Right? And so, I mean, and then boom, congratulations, right? And then you can just refinance your loan. If you refinance your loan, you reduce your monthly payment, you get to make extra money, right? I mean, boom, congratulations, right? There's a lot of ways to make money. It's the big idea is that it's like, once you understand that you're really not at risk for anything, you could give yourself a raise of about $50,000 a year, and you would only be at risk for about $1,000. You would be at risk for about $1,000 a month. All right, and the success rate for becoming a real estate investor, I don't know what it is, but it's pretty high. It's from my understanding, real estate has made more millionaires in the entire country than any other aspect of the market. Any other part of the market, real estate has made more people a millionaire than any other aspect of any other sector of the U.S. economy. And so your chances of making it are the highest if you get into real estate. And if you buy about $500,000 worth of real estate, you're really only at risk for about $1,000 a month. And so, but that's it for me today, YouTube. Y'all have a good one.